I was debating on going to see it, but I ended up just going to see The Strangers instead. I probably should have gone to see Planet of the Apes, but
Yeah, just
because I guarantee you, I probably would have enjoyed it a hell of a lot more.
Yeah, well, I mean, I enjoyed it a lot more on rewatch. I mean, I did like the movie when I first saw it. It was only a couple of days after it first came out. I was still on holiday when it first came out, but that first trailer that dropped towards the end of last year just really sold it immediately, just on the vibe, and also just doing the very brave thing, because since rewatching this again, I watched it last night.
Right.
I did go back and rewatch Rise, Dawn, and War, because I haven't watched those for years. Especially Rise, I haven't watched since maybe 6-7 years. Might be a lot. It might be a lot longer. I remember rewatching it quite a bit when it first came out, but I think it was just because it was on TV all the time. And I really like Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I think that's really, really solid, especially for a reboot. There's also just an hour 40. Like, that really sells us. And
yeah, it's
Dawn,
not like an overstretched film.
No, definitely not. No. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes I watched for a second time because I'd only seen it once, and I think I was always on the other end of people's opinions on that. I was like, oh yeah, it's pretty good. Everyone's like, no, it's absolutely brilliant. It's one of the greatest films of the year. I'm like, okay, right.
good for you.
I mean, like, it's good, yeah, I'm definitely not disputing that. And War for the Planet of the Apes, I think, was the second date I had with my partner. Of all things to go and see, just that. And just looking over it,
monkeys
crying,
and humans revolting against each other. Yeah,
not again. And even after War for the Planet of the Apes ended, I'm like, you can't do this story anymore. You've finished it. It's ended lovely. It's nice and wonderful. And then Disney's like, I mean, we have the keys to this kingdom of the
not quite.
we have the keys to the kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Which sounds like a hilarious title now.
It does, actually.
So,
yeah,
it is actually.
If that's like some future film.
So, naturally, they're going to do more of them. And even the director, Wes Ball, when he was first offered the film, he said, no. Like,
yeah,
I can't do that. And then decided, well, no, hang on a second. The only way you could feasibly do this and justify doing not just another film, but also another trilogy, we'll get to that criticism, is you set it hundreds of years later. In this case, it's about 300 years later. Anyone that was on the planet in war, get dead, or really, really old, which I'd be really surprised at. I don't believe the monkey virus actually lets you age for longer. As funny as that would be. So all of a sudden, all of Caesar's teachings, all of his beliefs, are myth, basically.
Long and forgotten.
Yeah, so what happens when you do that? You make a pretty great film, actually. And again, when I first watched it, I was like, oh yeah, this is pretty good. The runtime was my biggest issue. It's like 2 hours and 25 minutes. I'm like, guys, you don't need to be nearly 2.5 hours. That's pushing it. On rewatch, there isn't anything I'd want to get rid of, because I like all the scenes in the film. So just because I just like trim a couple of little bits, just like a little bit. It might mean you only lose like 5 minutes, but yeah. One of the things I really love about this franchise, in particular with Kingdom, because they couldn't really do it with the previous ones, is it really, really highlights the divide between the humans and the apes. The only other time they've been able to do that was in Dawn, but that's like literally in the title. It's the Dawn of Planet of the Apes. They've only just started doing this thing. Here we are 3 centuries after that, and you see the way that the apes look at the humans. Well, they refer to them as echoes. They don't have human. And the humans that are left, there's only a few, you know.
Just a handful, yeah.
Yeah, and granted, we've seen a lot of post-apocalyptic fiction that really likes to highlight humans are just the worst, but we are just horrible, frankly. And this franchise begins with a really great concept in 1968, and it's taken this rebooted franchise to be like, yeah, we can actually do something with this. We can really show that. And it's been really solid following it, because at the end of the day, you look at these two films, you've got, you know, the apes are the dominant life form on this planet now. The humans are just off in the corner. And the humans are going to want to try and become dominant again. They want to have their planet back. Like there's a great sequence in the film where they're like, this was our planet. And then you've got Noah, played by Owen Teague, who's our new lead protagonist, Ape. Much better on rewatch. At first I was like, you're just playing catch-up for the entire film because you don't know anything about Caesar yet. But the film does a good job of illustrating that you wouldn't, because in those 300 years, some people have kept to Caesar's teachings, others have manipulated it entirely, or just don't think about it. So their way of life is just, the apes have always been here. We've always been the ones talking.
Yeah.
And then when Noah learns the truth about what the planet was like, he's like, what happens to us? Like, if you get the planet, what do we get? And just even something as simple as that, they couldn't do that kind of conversation in the previous ones because there'd only been a certain amount of time between the virus getting out and the apes starting to become more intelligent. But because we're 300 years later, you can actually have that conversation because it's much closer.
It's good they haven't just like picked it up from the get-go. They've actually left a bit of time. So again, all the seasons, teachers and things like that, they're a myth, they've forgotten, they've rusted, they've gone down the drain. Whatever terminology you like.
Well, there's a great analogy that I saw about the way the Caesar's teachings have been morphed in this film. Because they are still there, but again, they're just utilised in different ways. Like a game of Chinese whispers where you have everyone around the circle, someone starts a story, and then it goes along. And then when it gets back to you...
By the end of it, it's something else, yeah.
That is literally that. And I think that's such a genius way of continuing this story because it allows you a little bit more free reign. Like, you don't need to focus on that story anymore. That's done. You can still have a little bit of it, but you can still do your own thing. And I am positively convinced by the end of this film, which does set up a sequel, I don't mind. Like, there's been a lot of criticism about this film being like, oh yeah, it's going to be the start of a trilogy, and like, oh, this is just stupid. I'm like, right. I'm absolutely sick and tired of this argument of, oh, if you know it's the start of a trilogy, that means it's bad. It's like, not every trilogy has to be made like The Dark Knight, where it's, oh, we'll do one film. Oh, okay. We'll do another one because people seem to like that. Like, if you've got a big enough story that can span a couple of movies, as long as you put in the hard work in the beginning to get people to care, then that argument is completely invalid.
See, it makes sense with Planet of the Apes, though, because there's always going to be something to continue on, whereas The Strangers, there isn't. Because exactly. Like, the fact that they're going to do a trilogy when there's very little to offer anyway, they're really going to struggle. Because that word prequel and then attaching The Strangers to it, like, what's a prequel about it? Like, you're not giving anything to show it's a prequel. It could well and truly be a sequel, if not like a sequel that takes place before. Like, it doesn't make any sense at all, and that's why it's getting absolutely berated, because it's just nonsense.
And I already know that there has been.
It is actually gonna continue for as long as it can.
Yeah, and to be honest, despite going into this with a lot of trepidation, because this is one of two franchises released in the same year that used to be under Fox that are now under Disney, where the previous story was in 2017. It ended fairly fine, and now they're both being rejuvenated by Disney. Of course, I'm referring to Planet of the Apes and Alien, because that's coming out in August as well. This one I think I was more worried for, to be honest, because again, war ended brilliantly. I was like, you're gonna have to justify yourself here.
How do you top that?
Yeah, exactly. So the film in a way has a lot of unnecessary baggage attached to it because those previous films, especially when I remembered how good they are so damn good. And I don't know where this stands with me. I think I like this one more than Rise. Again, it is way too long, but I think the inclusion of the villain, Proximus Caesar, which
Proximus,
I love.
Sounds like
that
a terrible Transformer. It's Optimus Prime, but he's always in proximity of you. My name is Proximus.
All of a sudden, that all of a sudden feels like that skit of someone getting out of a speeding ticket by claiming he's going to the hospital because his wife is in labour. He finds a woman who doesn't have a husband and pretends to be the father, and just the police officer is just in the background of every single thing, seemingly for decades, watching, making sure he's actually the real thing. I'm picturing Prime like that, just like, yep. Always here, always
This
watching.
is my apprentice, Proximus. As you can tell, he likes being close to you.
Just like that. But, I mean, Kevin Durant, as Proximus sees, like, we saw him in Abigail recently, and he's so good in this film. He's so fun. And I don't know if it's just the performance as well. Like, it's very, like, the voice is very guttural. Like, he's only just learned how to speak, so it's very harsh, it's very raspy.
Yeah.
And I find that really interesting. And I just like how he's taken Caesar's teachings, claimed that they're his own, but he's also really inspired by humans. Like, he's being taught about human history, specifically Roman history, hence why he calls himself Proximus. That sounds very Roman. You even look at sort of his, don't want to say kingdom, but he already says that, his little kingdom.
Well, he's kind of got like a little empire, doesn't he?
Well, to be honest, if they didn't call this Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, I think Empire of the Planet of the Apes would have worked as well.
Yeah.
Both work very, very well. And yeah, I'm loving the titles of these. Like, all it took was just one of the sequels to the 1960s film being like, yeah, we can't really call it Planet of the Apes 2 the apening, so we'll do something else. And now every other Planet of the Apes film has to follow that trend. It's like, what silly name can we give this? And like, I've got an idea for you. you know, like you do Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Like, what do you do next? Dawn. Well, Dawn came first. Like,
and then we do Sundown. Dusk.
Pre-evening of the Planet of the Apes.
Pre-evening.
It's set between 4 and 6 p.m. The following Planet of the Apes film takes place in real time. 24 Apes edition. But yes, I mean, going back to the fact that this does set up a sequel, but I'm absolutely for that because it leaves it in a really interesting place, especially because the apes are not really trusting the humans that are left. The humans aren't really trusting the apes that are left. One of them is going to have to come out on top, and it's not going to be fun regardless. And I absolutely believe, with this being a trilogy, I absolutely believe that whatever that third film is, it's going to be a remake of that original movie. Like, straight up, we're going to do that. And I think I'm fine with that.